You ever start a PS2 game, get hooked and then never finish it? Don't lie, we've all been there. Some of these games were too hard, too weird, or just got lost in time. In this video, we're revisiting those legendary titles you probably played, but never saw the credits roll. Let's see how many of these you actually beat.
Psycho, and press that switch so I can brain you. Well, this is what...
First up is a game that probably flew way under your radar. Second Sight dropped on the PlayStation 2 back in 2004, and yeah, barely anyone talks about it today. But this game, it had something different going on. It blended third-person shooter mechanics with stealth, and threw in psychic powers just to mess with your head a little more. You play as John Vettis, a guy who wakes up in some shady medical facility with zero memory of who he is or how he got there. All he knows is that something happened 6 months ago during a military mission in Siberia. That's the only clue he's got. And the game slowly unpacks that mystery as you move forward. Gameplay-wise, it's kind of like Metal Gear Solid if Metal Gear gave you telekinesis and mind control. You're sneaking around, taking cover, shooting when needed, but also flinging enemies across the room with your mind. It's chaotic in the best way. What really adds some spice to the combat is how the psychic powers evolve. At first, you're just nudging objects or knocking people over, but later on you start unlocking stuff like healing, mind control, and even astral projection. That last one lets you leave your body and scout ahead as a ghost-like version of yourself, which feels super eerie but also kind of brilliant when trying to sneak past a room full of guards. The controls take a bit to get used to, especially with the long tutorial, but once you get the hang of it, there's a lot to mess around with. One of the standout things here is the atmosphere. The sound design is surprisingly immersive for a PS2 title. In the training area alone, you can hear wind rustling through trees, birds in the distance, and planes taking off from a nearby runway. It makes you want to play the whole thing with headphones on just to catch all those little audio details. Second Sight wasn't perfect, but it was bold. It tried to tell a deeper story and mix genres at a time when most games played it safe.
Leave her alone! You and I have unfinished business.
Back on the PlayStation 2, there was one game that stood out not just for its gameplay but for how bold and different it felt. I'm talking about Prince of Persia: The Warrior Within. It took everything the first game built and cranked it up to 11. Darker tone, brutal combat, and a prince who's clearly been through some stuff. It blended hack and slash mechanics with slick parkour and some light puzzle solving that actually kept you on your toes. What really made it special, though, was how smooth everything felt. For a PS2 title, the animations and controls were next level. You could dual-wield weapons and rip swords straight from enemies' hands and use them against their own crew. Fights were fast, flashy, and full of finishing moves that made every encounter feel intense. And then there's the time rewind mechanic. Mess up a jump or take a hit you didn't see coming? Hit the button and rewind a few seconds like nothing ever happened. That one feature alone made the game feel way ahead of its time. One of the wildest things in the game is this unstoppable beast called the Dahaka. It's basically a time guardian that chases you down if you mess with the timeline too much. Whenever it shows up, the vibe instantly shifts. The music gets more intense, the camera pulls back, and you have to run for your life. There's no fighting it, no tricks, you just run. It turns regular platforming into a full-on panic mode, and those sections are some of the most intense moments in the entire game. The vibe of the game was totally different from the Sands of Time. It leaned hard into a gothic, heavy metal energy, with dark castles, haunting music, and an atmosphere that made it feel like you were in a completely different universe. And yeah, a lot of people started this one and never made it to the end. If you dropped it halfway, you're definitely not alone. But if you stuck with it, you know just how satisfying it was to master the prince's moves and beat the odds. Code Veronica is one of those games that either made you feel like a genius or broke your spirit completely. It's survival horror in its rawest form, with no hand-holding and zero patience for hesitation. Originally released for the Dreamcast, most people only got to know it when it hit the PS2, and by then, a lot had already missed the boat. The story picks up 3 months after Resident Evil 2. Claire Redfield is still looking for her brother Chris, and this time, she ends up on a remote island that's basically a prison wrapped in a bioweapon nightmare. The game throws you into puzzles that feel more like IQ tests, enemies that never seem to die, and a constant shortage of ammo that makes every decision matter. Combat in this game is tense as hell. It's not just about pulling the trigger, it's about knowing when to shoot and when to run. Every bullet feels like gold, so wasting one can come back to bite you hard later. Enemies don't just drop easy, especially when you're dealing with those fast, twitchy mutants that pop out when you're low on health and already panicking. The fixed camera angles make aiming feel clunky by today's standards, but that's what makes every fight nerve-wracking. You're constantly trying to line up a shot while backing away, hoping you don't corner yourself. But what really sets the mood is the atmosphere. The island feels cold, empty, and unforgiving, with its decaying labs, creepy doll rooms, and eerie music that kicks in just when you're about to relax. Every hallway feels like a trap, and the camera angles make sure you never feel safe, even when there's nothing around. Code Veronica also pushed the survival horror formula into darker, more psychological territory. There's this twisted sibling duo, the Ashfords, who bring a whole new level of creepy to the franchise. And yeah, if you manage to beat this one without a guide, hats off to you. Jet Li Rise to Honor hit the PS2 in 2004 and felt like an interactive martial arts movie from start to finish. It's a cinematic beat-em-up where every punch, kick, and slide across the floor feels like it came straight out of a Hong Kong action flick. You play as Kit Yun, a loyal bodyguard caught in the middle of a deadly setup. His boss, a powerful crime figure, tries to leave the underworld behind but gets taken out before he can disappear for good. Before dying, he hands Kit a final mission: deliver a mysterious envelope to his daughter in San Francisco. What follows is a non-stop, city-hopping brawl through gang hideouts, alleyways, and high-tech facilities. One thing that made Rise to Honor stand out was how it never broke the cinematic flow. The game didn't use traditional cutscenes between levels. Instead, everything played out in real time, with seamless transitions between gameplay and story moments. Another cool touch was how the game used the environment during fights. You could smash enemies into walls, kick them over ledges, or use props like chairs and crates to finish them off. But the real magic is in the movement. Every attack and dodge is based on motion capture from Jet Li himself, giving the combat a superfluid and authentic feel. Enemies surround you constantly, but the game lets you fight in all directions using the right analog stick, making the whole thing feel fast and reactive. It's stylish, intense, and packed with slow-motion moments that hit hard. Darkwatch came out back in 2005, and man, this one was pure chaos in the best way. It dropped on the PS2 first, later hitting the Xbox, and it came out swinging with a wild mix of Western, horror, and steampunk. You play as Jericho Cross, a gunslinger turned vampire who gets dragged into this secret organization that hunts down supernatural threats. It's like someone threw Van Helsing, Red Dead Redemption, and some old-school Call of Duty into a blender, then cranked the volume to max. The vibe is gritty as hell. You've got gothic churches, dark skies, heavy religious imagery, and weapons that literally have crosses forged into them. Even the pistols feel like relics out of a cursed monastery. The tone leans hard into that dark, mythological West, and the setting actually helps the gameplay hit harder. One thing that really stands out is how the game handles moral choices. As Jericho, you get to decide whether to embrace the darkness or fight against it, and those choices affect your powers. Go full vampire, and you'll unlock brutal, aggressive abilities. Stay on the righteous path and you'll get defensive, more controlled skills. Now, speaking of gameplay, this thing plays smooth. The controls are super responsive, the gunplay is satisfying, and it somehow captures that Halo-like feel, which was rare for a PS2 shooter. This game didn't blow up like it should have, but for the ones who played it, it left a mark. Darkwatch might not be on every list, but once you fire that first cursed bullet, you don't forget it. Hold up real quick. If you're enjoying the video so far, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps a ton and tells the algorithm we're doing something right. Thanks for watching, seriously. Now let's get back to it.
They're still sexier than you are.
God Hand is one of those games that hit hard, got buried, and still lives rent-free in the minds of anyone who played it. Released on the PlayStation 2 back in 2006, it's a third-person beat-em-up with hack-and-slash vibes, brought to life by Clover Studios and published by Capcom. Yeah, that same Capcom that keeps remaking Resident Evil every other year. Still waiting on that God Hand remake, though. You play as a dude named Gene, your regular Street Fighter who ends up with one of the legendary God Hands. Basically a divine weapon that lets you break bones and egos in the most satisfying way possible. But here's the thing. This game does not hold your hand. It's hard, brutal, and sometimes straight up unfair. You mess up, you die. Simple as that. The gameplay is insane. You can customize your combos with dozens of different moves, dodge in real time with a flick of the stick, and unleash special attacks that make you feel like an anime boss. It's fast, chaotic, and addictive in the best way. There's also this insane mechanic called the roulette wheel. During fights, you can pause the action and spin it to pull off over-the-top moves like the Ball Buster or the God Stomp. Each one has a ridiculous name and an even crazier animation. But don't come in expecting a polished modern experience. This game is old school to the core. Janky, raw, and proud of it. What really makes God Hand stand out is its tone. It doesn't take itself seriously for a second. It throws every weird joke, bizarre enemy, and absurd situation it can at you. One moment you're fighting a pair of Lucha Libre dwarves in Power Ranger suits, the next you're kicking a demon clown into orbit. It's pure madness, from start to finish. And yet, beneath the chaos, there's a tight combat system that rewards skill and punishes sloppiness, and that's why fans never let it go. God Hand wasn't made to please everyone. It was made for people who love a challenge and don't mind getting wrecked a few times just to land that perfect combo. The Simpsons Hit and Run is pure chaotic nostalgia. If you grew up in the 2000s, there's a good chance you played it, or at least watched someone crash a car into Homer's house. This was basically GTA in Springfield, but with aliens, exploding soda, and the dumbest, most hilarious storylines pulled straight from the show. It was released in 2003 for PS2, Xbox, GameCube, and PC, and somehow still holds up as one of the most entertaining licensed games ever made. You get to explore Springfield as Homer, Bart, Lisa, Marge, and even Apu. Each level puts you in a different part of the city, packed with jokes, references, and secrets everywhere. The plot starts off goofy, with weird surveillance vans and crop circles popping up. But things spiral fast. Turns out there's a mind-controlling soda called Buzz Cola that's messing with people's heads. And yeah, aliens are involved. It's all as ridiculous as it sounds, but that's what made it so good. What made it even cooler was how much it leaned into the Simpsons universe. You'd hear random quotes from episodes while walking through the streets, and some of the missions were direct callbacks to fan-favorite moments from the show. There were even legit boss chases, like being hunted down by giant wasp cameras or outrunning a laser-shooting spaceship. But what really sold this game wasn't just the humor, it was the freedom. You could drive around, collect coins, run from the cops, destroy mailboxes, and find hidden gags around every corner. The driving felt great, the missions were fun, and even the voice acting was on point with the original cast. For a game based on a cartoon, it went way harder than anyone expected. If you dropped this game halfway through, you're not alone. Some missions were brutal, and the difficulty spiked out of nowhere. But if you ever get the chance to go back, it's still one of the best ways to relive the golden era of The Simpsons. Manhunt 2 dropped on the PlayStation 2 back in 2007. And let's be real, it was pure chaos in disc form. Brutal, disturbing, and totally unapologetic. You play as Daniel Lamb, a mentally unstable man who wakes up in an insane asylum with no clue who he is. By his side, Leo Casper, a dangerously unhinged killer who's way too comfortable with violence. Together, they go on a bloody path to uncover Daniel's forgotten past. This isn't your average stealth game. It forces you to sneak around in the shadows and planning every move, because going loud usually means getting wrecked. The tension is constant. Every hallway, every corner, feels like something could go horribly wrong. And when you finally get the drop on an enemy, the game makes you execute them in the most graphic ways possible. What made things even more intense was the way the game used sound and visuals to mess with your senses. Lights would flicker during key moments. Your vision would blur or distort when Daniel started losing grip on reality. Voices whisper in the background. Ambient noise creeps in when you least expect it. And the whole thing starts to feel like you're losing your mind right along with the main character. The violence in Manhunt 2 pushed the limits of what the industry was willing to show. It got slammed by politicians, banned in several countries, and caused a massive stir in the media. But beneath all that controversy, there's a game that actually plays really well. The mechanics are tighter than the first one, the story's darker, and the psychological horror hits different. This wasn't made to make you feel powerful. It was made to mess with your head. Despite all the drama, GameSpy still named it PlayStation 2's Game of the Year. Onimusha 3 dropped on the PlayStation 2 back in 2004, and it went way harder than people give it credit for. It's the kind of game that hits different, especially if you're into fast-paced sword combat and wild time travel twists. You play as a samurai named Samanosuke, but here's the crazy part. You also switch between him and a French cop from the future, voiced and modeled after Jean Reno. Yeah, they really did that. The story jumps between feudal Japan and modern-day Paris, and it actually works. One minute you're slicing through demons with a katana, the next you're blasting through them with high-tech weapons in the middle of the city. The switch between timelines keeps the pacing tight and unpredictable, which makes it hard to put the controller down. What really helps sell that time jump vibe is how different the environments feel. One moment you're running through ancient castles lit by torches, and the next you're in a high-security lab full of flickering lights and steel corridors. Plus, the cinematic cutscenes, they went all out. The intro alone looks like something straight out of an animated action film, with sword fights, explosions, and slow-mo shots that still hold up today. Gameplay-wise, Onimusha 3 took everything great from the older games and turned it up a notch. Combat is smooth, responsive, and super satisfying. The puzzle elements break things up nicely without dragging the pace, and the boss fights, they're legit. Some of them will test your reflexes in the best way. Even though it didn't blow up in the West the way it did in Japan, this one's still a banger. Ghost Rider on PS2 was pure chaos in the best way. A mix of hack and slash mayhem, heavy metal vibes, and that unmistakable early 2000s edge. It came out in 2007, riding the wave of the movie with Nicolas Cage, but instead of just copying the film, it took things further. The story picks up right after the events of the movie. Mephisto wants Johnny Blaze back in hell, and he's not exactly sending flowers. Demons are coming after him non-stop, and it's your job to fight through all of them. The combat feels straight out of God of War, with flaming chains, brutal finishers, and a shotgun that literally shoots massive fireballs. What's even cooler is how the game let you upgrade Ghost Rider's abilities as you progressed. As you wreck enemies and collect souls, you can spend them to unlock new combos, upgrade your health bar, boost your damage, power up your Hellfire meter, and even level up your bike combat to make those chase scenes even more insane. It's a pretty straightforward system, but it works well. You actually feel the difference when you invest in stronger attacks or extend your health. The best part is unlocking those flashy chain combos that light up the whole screen. The dark, grimy atmosphere, full of gothic ruins and hellish landscapes, adds a lot to the experience. And just when you think it's all about slashing demons, the game throws you on the hell cycle for high-speed road rash-style segments. The soundtrack is loud and aggressive, the kind that keeps your heart racing during every fight. Visually, it pushed the PS2 hard, with fire effects and dark shadows that still look solid today. Ghost Rider wasn't just a lazy movie tie-in. It was a game that blended the best parts of action games from that era and delivered something brutal, fast, and unforgettable. Alright, now I want to hear from you. How many of these games did you actually finish back in the day? Or did some of them beat you down before you ever saw the credits? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading everything. If you had fun watching, don't forget to leave a like and hit that subscribe button to keep the nostalgia rolling. Big thanks for hanging out, and I'll catch you in the next one.